call the meeting to order. If you look at your agenda, we don't have minutes this morning, but we will have them at our next meeting that we can review. We'll move on to the financial reports. First one is the gift fund.
And Shashi went and made this nice thing that we can have the viewers at home view if they so choose.
Okay.
Complete with pointer. So as you can see, not a lot of activity again this month. Too many people Christmas shopping maybe.
Right. So we have gone up a little bit, and it shows the reimbursements that were made from November. They were put in November. They were subtracted in November, yes. It says on December that none were processed. Are there any outstanding bills?
Just the one for the Friends program from December. And
Okay.
I think our portion from the gift account will be $25. And that's actually going in this next pay cycle.
I'd like to comment on the fact that Unibank donated $1,000 for us in November, for anyone that isn't aware of it.
We came in third in that contest,
Yes,
which was
yes,
very
yeah.
good. Yes, so, yes, Zoya.
Were we able to distribute the hoarding expenses that we had? You were talking about asking another group to see whether they would share the expenses with us.
Oh, for the dumpster cost? No, they took care of some other costs that were involved with that hoarding case, but they weren't able to cover the dumpster, so that was kind of our portion of it. But yeah, the hoarding task force did come up with some other funds that were involved there,
Oh, good.
but the dumpster was on us.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments about the gift fund? It's still maintaining its level very well. So we had talked at last month's meeting about setting up some guidelines for the gift fund. And I think maybe we need to set up some kind of a subcommittee to look at that. Is anybody interested in doing that? We had talked about just some broad parameters, no specific things, but just some how it's used, where it's used. We had also talked about listing it as memorials and then general donations to kind of keep the memorials a separate kind of listing. Yes, Shashi?
Well, two thoughts come to my mind. One is perhaps we've got to get some input from FinCom, because we got to think in terms of what would be seen as perhaps inappropriate if we spend something from here, and the feelings of the donors themselves, whether the donor would actually feel that what we spent.
Are you there?
Yep, we're here.
Yep.
What we spent it on was appropriate.
Sounds like I'm not there, right?
Can you hear Shashi?
Okay.
Now she can't.
I'm going to stand by because she's probably going to call right back. Yep. Oh. Then she'll be transferred in.
I forgot to tell the audience that Susan is with us electronically today for the first part of our meeting.
You need to speak up.
So I think, we need to speak up, probably a little bit louder.
Okay, here she is.
So we got disconnected some way or other.
Susan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can now.
Okay, we're going to have to try to speak louder. Shashi was speaking, and I think you couldn't hear him. Maybe if I try to turn the phone towards him.
Connected.
Okay, nope, we could hear you. All right,
Okay.
all right, Sashi, if you want to speak again, I'll turn it up if need be.
Well, basically, we're talking about guidelines for the gift fund, and I had a suggestion that perhaps we ought to get some guidance from the finance committee, because after all, we are a town department, and we've got to have some oversight as to the things that we can actually spend the money on, And we gotta take the feelings of the donors into account, whether they feel that what we spent the money on is in keeping with whatever expectations they might have had.
Well, anything over $300 has to go through the town manager, doesn't it? to
For an
begin with?
expense. Yep.
Yes,
So in a way, that does put a bit of a damper on it.
yeah,
Well, in light of this discussion from last month, one of the projects we've been working on in the meantime is going back into the gift account for the last 10 years. So going back to FY08 and showing and trying to break things down into those categories so a subcommittee could view just how much came through memorial donations for the small home repair program, from just other donations like Udabank and things like that. So whenever the subcommittee does meet, hopefully that will be complete so they can see at least, historically over the last 10 years, what types of donations have come in and what types of payments have we, put out, either for the small home repair program or for the movie or to help
Yeah, so-
offset programs for the Friends, to hopefully, show
show where,
over the last 10 years at least,
How it's
how
been spent.
so hopefully that will be helpful.
To me, the only really unusual expenditure is for the dumpster. Other than that, things are
yeah,
more or
this
less-
time,
Yeah.
but if we go back. So anybody interested in doing that? All these volunteers?
I mean,
Okay, I'll talk to some of you later and we'll get together a couple. So we can have two people together without posting it, right?
correct. And I was gonna say, what we could do is once I have that whole breakdown complete, maybe just share it with everybody. And
Yeah.
folks can look through it and then relay thoughts or things that might jump out after reviewing, the 10-year spreadsheet.
That might be, right.
Yeah,
We can
Nobody
even have a
needs to
general
volunteer for it.
discussion here
yeah, right.
without having a separate meeting. We have enough separate meetings, different things kind of thing. Okay, very well, that would be great. Do you have any idea when that will be completed or?
We're working our way backwards, so we're back to FY13 right now.
Oh, good.
So we're halfway there.
Oh, good, oh,
So-
that's good. Okay, then we will,
Question,
yes.
is there a self-assessment committee that might be, sort of fit in with the committee that you're talking about?
Susan,
Yes?
is there any part of this self-assessment that would fit in with this gift fund, the amounts of money? I know there was a financial group, and I don't,
I would have to look at that again, but that is,
Would be
that would be where it would fall. When that group, that committee that was on the asset and financial management, whatever it was called, they never did a report. I don't think they did more than just look and see that things were done appropriately with the town budget, and that was kind of the end of what they did. And so they didn't look overall at everything, even things like inventory or anything like that, because it was not just
yeah,
expenses and spending that entailed. It also was management of the capital assets and that kind of thing.
oh, okay. I knew there was financial part of it, I just wasn't sure. Suppose if we went back to that part of the self-assessment, the financial, to look into
Yeah,
it?
I would have to revisit it to be absolutely sure, but I'm pretty sure that this would fall into it.
Would you,
And we do need, since there are funds, we do need some written guidance on how those funds will be used.
would you have time in the next couple of weeks to look up that and maybe see how this would fit in with that?
Sure, I could probably look it up even before tomorrow, but I'm not going to make promises for tomorrow. But
No, I understand.
I'll look up I'll look that up.
Oh, good, because if we do the self-assessment, we will need that anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
So we could do
That's right.
a two-pronged approach here. So, okay, thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
Okay, moving right along to the formula grant. Where did I put it? we have there it is. Okay, we have the second quarter totals. Is this falling pretty much what we had anticipated, the costs? That really the only expenditures we have made are for our consultant, our facilitator for the long-range planning. This part of it. The other part is the salaries.
Right. The only things that should pop up in the spring will be when we do our volunteer recognition, when we pay for, assuming, we haven't obviously discussed it yet, but assuming we do something as we've done in the past few years, which people seem to have enjoyed, doing the breakfast and giving some type of a gift and a certificate. We've taken the cost for those certificates. We've paid for the breakfast and the gifts out of the formula. I think all of you received your little calendars for the new year. We had started doing that annually because we had a little bit of wiggle room in volunteer recognition. So that will be coming out of the formula too, assuming that we don't have any issues with it coming out of there. And those usually are $200 or so. So that very well might show up next month, seeing, we just got the calendars.
Okay, good.
So, but other than that, yeah, everything is
We're just,
staying.
continuing on as, so it looks good. It looks like there's plenty of money to carry us on through the end of the fiscal year then.
Thank goodness.
Yes, I know it.
Because I still haven't heard, they are issuing EOEA is issuing the contracts of what they're hoping the number will be that they can issue us.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Do we have a figure yet on how much?
We haven't received ours yet, but I have received word from EOEA that we should be getting it in the next week or so.
So we don't know exactly how much it is.
So sometime this month, we should know?
Yes, yeah, because they typically issue the payments in December, but because, they were trying to see if they could get us more. So
So
we'll see.
nobody's told us yet if we're getting more or
No.
less.
No. My belief is it will probably be a little bit less, but hopefully not some of the cuts that they were initially talking about. So
Oh, let's
we'll
hope so.
see.
Let's hope they didn't make too big a cut for us. Yeah, okay, thank you, Sharon. The revolving account,
let's see if I can find mine to throw up in here.
it has gone down as we expected, probably.
So the two big things that are different, and I don't know if you found it helpful or more confusing to have last year's as a reference, but if you, it'll be a little tricky for me to display this, but if you compare it to last year's gift account or revolving account at this time, you'll see that the numbers were significantly higher, but we had received our payment from the DOT, which we haven't received yet, and it will probably happen differently from the DOT the way it did in the past. If you recall, we got that one lump sum from the DOT, which kind of made the number,
Yes,
jump up
yes.
very, noticeably last fiscal year. From what we understand from this fiscal year, it'll probably be monthly reimbursements.
Oh,
After reports are submitted from the DOT. So they're still working on how that process is going to be. They tried doing a webinar that Cynthia and I tried to participate in, and of course they had technical difficulties, and they had to say,
yeah, as usual.
and they had to say that they would just send us packets explaining what they were going to talk about in the webinar. So we're awaiting those. But that seemed to be the big change. So money would be trickling in month to month. Versus getting one lump sum like we did last fiscal year. The other thing that's different too is last fiscal year we were getting monthly payments from the housing authority
Yes,
for their residents, and again, because of the way things have changed on the federal government level, they are also probably going to have to be shifting to a reimbursement type system. So Cynthia and I are still working with the housing director on how that's going to work and what types of reports she'll need to submit to, be able to get reimbursements on our behalf from the housing authority. So she doesn't see, Kelly Bergeron, the director over at the housing authority, she doesn't see our reimbursements going away, thank goodness. But again, because of the shift in the way the federal government is doing things, probably a difference in how we'll receive the funds. Again, for years it was just every month, we received a payment for them. They would give us a contract at the beginning of their fiscal year saying that they would give us X amount of money with X amount each month. And again, this current fiscal year, that isn't happening because of, their federal stuff. So there will hopefully be money coming in to bounce that number back up, but it will probably be happening month to month as opposed to big lump sums like we, previously had seen.
As we had, yeah.
Is
Yes.
that beneficial, or is there any harm in that?
That's a good question. I think as long as, we may want to check with the town manager just to see if he's concerned at all about that cap. How we had spoken previously about the revolving fund cap. The way that the legislature states that the revolving fund has to be managed puts a cap on it. So the money can't just keep building up and building up and building up. It's voted on every year at town meeting. We've already raised the cap once. So that's something we may just want to see if the new town manager has concerns about perhaps at the spring town meeting raising the cap. So if that we have a big chunk of money come in, or if it is trickling in, if that raises any concerns with that cap. I would tend to doubt it, but it might be good just to get his take on it, because the time to change it would be at town meeting.
Yes, yeah.
Because that article on this account is built in. The town meeting members have to vote on it no matter what. So if he thinks it would be prudent to change the cap, that would be the time to do it. So probably wouldn't hurt just to see what he thinks.
To see what, yeah. See what's going
Because
on.
that is a good question. And that's the only repercussion I could see would be that possibly it might.
Do we know what the cap is now?
Right now it's 75,000 that can come in over the course of a year. So our balance exceeds that, but right now we're capped at 75,000 coming in over the course of the year. If we think more than that would come in, we'd have to go to town meeting and they'd have to amend, that warrant article every year. So far that's been fine, and as you can see, if you did refer to last year's, we pretty much had exactly the same amount come in that came out, and it was less than 30,000. So
Have we received any money yet so far this year
for this fiscal year, no, just fares.
From the housing or from the DOT?
No, and both of that goes back to the changes in the federal regulations.
That's been 6 months, and they still haven't. Is there any way we can get information if they're going to continue to do it? Maybe they have decided not to do it.
Again, from what Cynthia and I found out from the housing director, she doesn't see a problem with the money continuing to come. It's just meeting.
Does she say when the money is going to come?
I think it will all depend on what kind of reports she'll be required to submit to get us reimbursed. The only thing she knows for sure is that it will be a reimbursable system based on what we used to get.
Does she have a time frame in which to do this?
I don't know. We can ask her that.
Because, it's been 6 months and we have received nothing from either the DOT or the housing. And that seems like a long period of time to not have anything coming in. I'm kind of concerned that maybe they have put a stop to it and didn't tell anybody.
Oh, let's hope not.
What is their usual schedule? How do they
Well,
reimburse us?
in the past, like I said, the housing authority just gave us, at the beginning of their fiscal year, they would give us a letter just saying that they were going to be giving us, a lump sum of money over the course of the year spread out in 12-month payments. And then every month they would just send a check. So Kelly informed us that it would be switching to a reimbursable type of system. And she was trying to get information herself on what exactly are they looking for as far as, for her to be able to distribute the money. Because it's federal money that they get from the housing
Did you
authority.
contact her and find out up to date what's?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because Cynthia and I haven't touched base with her since before the holidays to see where things are at with, the types of
Even when
reports she
we
needs.
acquire another van, I would think it would have an effect on these figures.
Oh, definitely. If we're operating 2 vans out of this account, depending on how many hours the bus would be on the road. One thing that's kind of nice that no amounts have really come in is you can really see just how much the operating costs are. Because that's really all that we've got so far for this fiscal year.
yeah.
So if you figure if it ran the same type of hours, these figures could be double.
Well, will that have an effect on what we have to be responsible for?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if we get some more information and find out when and if we're going to get that money. I think, where it's been such 6 months seems like a long time to get it
Yeah.
organized. And we need the money,
Question,
yes.
what is the source of these funds?
From the DOT, it's federal.
Or from the DOT?
For our grant from the Department of Transportation. And from the Housing Authority, it's my understanding it's from federal funds that they have to work with to help with transportation for their residents. So, to the best of my knowledge, they're both federal sources.
Yeah, I was asking that because, for 2 reasons. One, perhaps you would consider putting that in this spreadsheet somewhere, so we know where the money is coming from. The other thing is, are there limits imposed by somebody else on how much they can give us? In other words, are they giving us what we're entitled to? And who knows what we're entitled to?
Well, with the DOT, it's based on the grant that we submit. So they're reimbursing us on what we've written in the grant and what they've agreed to fund us through the grant. The way it's always worked before with the Housing Authority, it was just based on funds that they wanted to contribute to help provide transportation for the residents. It was apparently they have always received federal funds to enhance services to residents in housing. And again, it's my understanding that from the housing director that with the changes in the federal stuff that has also changed, and there's now more reporting involved, which they didn't have to do before, and so I'm not really sure. On the housing side, that's where most of the questions lie. I think with the DOT, we have the grant to fall back on, that if we weren't getting something that in the grant it said that we would, we'd have that grant contract to fall back on. But with housing, I don't know. That's where I think the more grayish stuff lies.
Right, we don't know what's gonna happen with the funding from the government.
I know it. It was
Right.
that a
Things
one-year
yeah.
grant? Do you submit the grant every year?
DOT is annual, yeah.
And when is that submitted?
Well, and that's something that's changed too. In the past, it had always been in February. Last year, when all the big changes happened, again federally, it didn't happen until May. And that's something we still don't know if that's now going to be the new cycle. Is it going to be every May, or are they going to be switching it back to February? It would seem, based on how things are going this year, that it's probably going to be May, because we're still waiting for the guidelines on how they're going to give us funds for the current year that we're in, that we've already operated, like you said, for 6 months.
Yeah.
So,
When you
Sorry?
ask for a grant, what are the things that you put in that you're asking?
what they ask a few different things. How many buses we operate, how many people we're transporting, What types of trips are we providing? So, basically for us, it's pretty cut and dry. We're taking people to work, we're taking people, to and from medical appointments. Our service area is just limited to and from Worcester, and through the grant, we're able to do Northborough and Westborough. If it wasn't for that grant, we wouldn't be able to do that, because the WRTA, their buses are limited to, we can only use those in Worcester and Shrewsbury. So it's through that grant that we're also able to take people to Northborough and Westborough. So that's probably the biggest thing is we're able to expand what we do because of that grant, above and beyond what the RTA regulates.
How can we find out if that grant is gonna be in February or May? Because in February, that's next month.
I know.
It's coming up very quickly.
I don't even know if they know, but when we get the documents that they're supposed to be sending us from the webinar that they weren't able to provide, I would assume there'd probably be some type of guidance in there. If not, when we receive it, we can call and follow up.
When do you, think maybe, when was the webinar?
It was supposed to be, I think it was the week after Christmas,
Okay,
so 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So you should be getting that information pretty soon then.
Yeah.
And we'll
And
have to-
typically when the DOT sends stuff, it's usually a big
Thick.
giant packet, so.
Well, we'll have to keep track of that. And I just had a question on these lists here. What are these are those other drivers?
Those are the driver hours. So the W just stands for the warrant number. That's the week that they were paid, how many hours the van ran that week, and then what the corresponding driver's salary was for that amount.
I thought the drivers were paid out of the town budget.
The RTA driver, when they drive the RTA buses, those two buses, they're paid for the money that we receive from the RTA.
Right.
When they drive the COA 98 van, that's paid out of the revolving. That's why the
So
revolving
these are just
was
the
created.
COA van?
Right.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure, just what those.
So that allows you also to see how many hours that van is running per week. So
Yeah.
when we initially got that van, we said it would be on the road half-time to supplement the RTA buses. So the RTA buses are on the road, give or take 40 hours a week. So we had said they'd be that third bus would be on the road up to 20 hours a week. As you can see, most of the weeks, it's on almost full-time because of the demand.
Yeah.
So the demand basically has grown to be double what we had projected when we initially started using a third van.
Good, yeah. Are there any more questions or concerns about the revolving account? No? Okay. Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Are you still there, Susan?
Yeah, Susan? Susan?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah. Any comments or questions?
No, I think that anything I would have said's already been covered. There would have been questions, and Sharon's already answered those.
Oh, good, okay. We're moving right along. The senior edition newsletter. Cliff, you had some good news?
Yes, I actually got a message from the listserv and
Good.
printed it out, so there it is.
Yay.
Bang, it's live. Didn't have to go looking for it.
Good.
Very good. So maybe we have that fixed then.
Let's hope. I'll let you know next month.
Next month, right.
We did get an email from IT that they had worked the people that manage the town website, it's called Civics Plus, and they had revamped the some things, and now they have a new password system that you have to use, and it seems like it's running much quicker, and it seems like whatever improvements they made seem good, so that's good to hear.
Good, yes.
Yes, would that be, this is Susan again, would that be the case also with our webpage in general as far as getting things updated on there?
Yes and no. Stacy did put in a request to IT to allow her to have a supplemental password in addition to me, so that the two of us could try to work together on getting it updated. Because right now, nobody's designated to, work on no one's been given the, password permissions except in this case, the department head. So,
Okay.
Stacy put that request in light of the new upgrade with Civics Plus to see if she can work on it as well.
Good.
Because her volunteer page, is extremely outdated, so I know she's itching to get that, cleaned up, so.
There's a lot that's outdated that
Yes.
needs to be done, yeah.
Would this include the agendas and the minutes and all those things that we need to get done?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So all of us departments will be busy trying to get everything archived properly, because I know apparently several things weren't loading for other departments with agendas and stuff too, so.
Good.
Hopefully, now we can all get back on track.
Let's hope so, let's hope so. Okay, the self-assessment, the survey. We have to make a decision today on what we're going to do. What information can you give us?
I thought I had a good meeting with Ethan. I met with Ethan on the 3rd, and he apologized that they've just been swamped at the Central Mass Agency on Aging. He said that he did receive, and I don't remember if I had updated you on this last month, but he did have a good conversation with Dr. Conroy. Dr. Conroy sent him the materials that he had. But Ethan hadn't had a chance to look through those. So Ethan is still working on the draft. He's also working on the cover letter for the survey that will go out. And I've got the sample ready for him, the 50-plus sample. So he seemed to think that we could still get this done in a fairly good timeline. So I did touch base with him yesterday. We didn't have a draft for today, but with any luck, by the end of the week, he seems to think it's almost done. So I think at this point, because we had, the astronomical cost if we tried to go through UMass's program, that was cost prohibitive. I know we ran into the snags with trying to have Worcester State help. At this point, I think Central Mass is probably our best bet at this point.
Our only recourse, maybe? I don't know. I don't know how do others feel about it.
Do we have an option?
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe we're, as I say, between a rock and a hard place. I think it's where we are. Is there any reassurance that he can give us? I mean, we have seen nothing since, October? All we've gotten is, next week or 2 weeks or.
I know, originally it was gonna be before Thanksgiving.
It's gonna be
Right.
done by
That's
Thanksgiving.
what I mean.
Right.
Next Thanksgiving.
And here it is, we don't
That's
even,
right.
and we don't even have a
Draft.
draft of anything, or, I don't know. What do you think?
I think we don't have an option really.
Yeah.
We are dependent on him totally. And he's the only one who said that he'll continue doing it for us,
Free of charge,
free of charge.
which is another factor too.
Susan, you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't think that we can gain much by trying to go back to square one and saying, we'll ditch this one. I think we're up to our knees in it already, if not our hips. And just keep on Ethan so that he makes us a priority, if that's possible. Ask him to set a deadline.
Okay,
So when he'll have it done, have him give us a pretty firm date when he expects to have it done, and then maybe at that point it will be good enough.
what do you think?
Maybe not perfect, but good enough.
I think I agree to that.
That's,
Yeah, is that agreeable? Can we get a firm date from him?
Yeah, let me see if I can reach him this afternoon, and I can give everybody an update at the workshop tomorrow,
Okay,
in one way or another, what he says.
and either we get a copy or a date. Hopefully a copy maybe by tomorrow would be wonderful.
Yeah, or a timeline of what he thinks.
Hopefully both a copy and a date.
Well, yeah, a date of completion, or a date of when to go out, I mean, if we get a copy, we can overnight approve it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that
not gonna
doesn't
take
take
us
long.
long to
Right.
approve it, and then just get it out. and get it out as soon as, I mean, if we could get it out by next Monday, would be wonderful to, you know, that, and if he sent us, he's talking about making a letter, I mean, I think maybe if he sent us a copy, we could give some input and maybe help him a little bit to move it along. Let's hope so. Okay, well, we'll continue with that, and,
Could I ask one question?
yes,
The actual mailing, it goes out to the people, where do they send it back? Do they have an address to send it back?
Ethan and I did discuss that, and, because originally.
I don't know if I'm still connected.
You are,
You are, Susan, can you hear us? Susan?
I guess not.
Looks like it.
Oh,
Guess they're just not talking.
yeah.
Susan? Oh, let me just see if the
light
speaker.
is-
Hello, are you still there?
Yeah, we're here, can you hear us?
Okay, all right.
Okay. All right, I'll move you back this way a little bit. I lost my train of thought.
you and Ethan spoke.
Oh,
Oh.
yes, and he originally had thought, seeing they're going to be doing the tallying, that it made sense to go back to the Central Mass Agency on Aging. But then when he talked to his supervisor, he said he thought that might be a little too confusing for people to be answering things about the town of Shrewsbury and the Council on Aging, but they're sending the survey back to the Central Mass Agency on Aging, because he felt that diluted, you know, we want to get our presence out there, you know, we're talking about in the self-assessment, marketing ourselves and getting our name out there, and they want to help that, not kind of pull away from it or make it more confusing. So he thinks it should come back here, and then he can be collecting the surveys from us, or having me mail the surveys off to him in bulk for him to be tallying.
Oh.
So that was a big shift
Yeah.
last week in our meeting, that he thought, you know, after talking to his supervisor, should be a little different than what he originally had said.
Yeah.
Is any of this gonna be done electronically, or is it all on paper?
That's one thing that we discussed too, because I told him, you know, Worcester State really wanted to try doing it electronically, but then more people wanted to just do it in paper. And Ethan seemed to lean towards, he thought it might just be easier to do it on paper, but he said it would be easy enough to put it online and just have a link saying, if you would rather take this online, here's the link, type of thing. So his goal is to just send it out in paper. And then if people say, ugh, I don't have time to fill this out, I wish it was online, well, there'd be a note, if you wish to fill this out online, here you go.
That sounds good.
So that's what he was leaning towards when we spoke last week.
And will this have a stamped, self-addressed envelope with it?
Yes, which we'll have to do through the town hall.
Yeah.
They'll have to pre-stamp.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to prepay. So in the past, when we did that, I forget if it was the assessor's office or the treasurer's office that was in charge of the postage meter, but they'll actually bill us, and then we'll have to determine what account that would come out of. Do we want to take it out of the formula,
Yeah.
under kind of the
That's what I was
consultant
wondering,
and stuff
yeah.
like that, the gift account? And again, maybe we could ask Kevin for guidance on
Well, where to
what he
take it.
thinks about that.
Zoya?
That was my question.
Oh,
Where are the funds going to come from?
so, okay, good. Okay, anything else? Oh, yes.
My biggest problem with this discussion is that we're only at the data gathering stage. In other words, we're going to send out all these surveys. We're going to get, hopefully, several hundred responses. Because after all, we've got, what, 6,000 seniors here?
8,000, 8,000.
8,000.
So if we get 3,000, you can imagine how much that paperwork that would be. Okay, from my perspective, the next thing that has to happen is that this data has to go into a database. Now, we get into a whole area with, okay, so we take the raw data and we put it into a raw database. But then a database that big with 6,000 entries or 4,000 entries is really not useful unless you have a mechanism in place for someone to be able to query that database. I am looking for the number of seniors who are between 65 and 70, or 65 and 75, who make use of transportation. I'm looking for people who are relatively young, relatively old. I'm looking for data for elders who use our services but do not come to the senior center. To write all these queries is not a trivial, it's a non-trivial task.
Well, and one of the things too to keep in mind is it's gonna be a scientific sample. So we wouldn't be sending out 8,000 surveys, we'll be doing a scientific sample. So that's one of the things Ethan is still getting guidance on as well, is what the sample size will be. And it's actually bigger than 8,000 because we're including 50 plus. So it's, I wanna say it's over 10,000. But so say we survey 10% of the people,
That's still
or
a
20% of the people. And then,
Still a large amount.
yes, yeah, we're still, and hopefully we'll get a lot back.
Yeah.
So my real question is, what are the plans do we have, or maybe it's premature at this point, to A, input the data into the database, B, write the mechanisms, to develop the mechanisms for people to be able to query the database. It's expensive.
And that's what Ethan is saying that the Central Mass Agency on Aging will do, that they'll take care of all of that.
Are they going to be getting inputs from us as to kind of data, kind of scripts that they're going to write?
As far as what kind of queries we're interested in.
Right.
Yeah, I would think so, because obviously we'd want to know, particularly with the people under 60, types of questions like, how many, what if there's more men under 60 that are interested in coming to the senior center than women? Why would that be? And trying to make decisions based on that type of data that tie into our strategic planning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you'd like, I can ask Ethan if he can include that in what he sends, what their actual plan is for disseminating the data.
No, see, there's really two questions. One is the fact that Ethan is giving up a lot of his time and making a lot of effort to do this for us for free. But do we have, who's going to pay for the rest of it?
And, well, right now, that's something that Ethan is saying the Central Mass Agency on Aging would do. That they would enter all the data and then work with us to query it to get what type of information we want to get.
Okay. Gotcha.
Because we're looking for the future of the senior center, are we actually more interested in the answers that the young seniors give?
I think it's a combination. I think we certainly are interested in the younger seniors. I'd say, even the 60 to 70, I think, to try to get them, a lot of them are still working.
That's what I'm thinking.
But the 50 to 60 would be very interesting to see what they have to say. But I think, for right now, for currently, the 60 to 70 should be a main focus as well, I think, to pull in. But that's just my feeling, but I think that a lot of us agree with that.
Well, I have a concern about elders who do not come here because
Yes.
they're homebound because of illness.
Yeah.
And somehow their voice has to be heard.
Yes. And we need that as well. No, I mean, it's a multi-pronged kind of approach to things, that we have different areas that we need to address, and I think that's what we're trying to do in the long-range planning, is to reach every level of constituency. Excuse me. So, yeah. Is there anything else with this? So we'll go with Ethan and tell him that we want to see something and we want a definite timeline, if we can get it, hopefully. We'll keep our fingers crossed again. So, okay. I would like to, Susan,
Yes.
you have anything to add?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, Before you leave, I wanted to go down to the van on transportation.
Okay.
Excuse me. I just wanted to mention that I had heard from Dan, and Dan, I keep calling Kevin Dan. I'm sorry,
I
Kevin.
do too.
After so many years.
After so many years, that we had talked about the condition of the COA van now, and that the answer I got from Kevin said that the van was purchased in 2012, and while it has body rust, it has not had significant mechanical issues. And so he thinks that because of this, that we do not need to move forward right now, that the van is just 5.5 years old. He does think that it should be submitted next year during the capital cycle, and then request funding in the next 2 to 3 years. So the COA van basically now is not eligible, however, for replacement. So that puts us right in the ability to start the fourth van immediately to get, and that's, Susan, that's what I wanted you to hear.
Yes.
So that, because it would be up to the Friends to establish a fundraising. We as the COA board cannot do that. And
Okay.
we need to look at the Friends organization, since they are the fundraising organization, to establish some kind of fund that we can always stuff envelopes or things like that as a COA board, but we can't ask for money or do anything. But we can certainly be a major part of the effort and to get, other people involved. So I think as the Friends, I would love to see something start in February to get a fund started some way or other for the fourth van. And then by the time we get a new van, then it would be time to replace the current van. So instead of doing them both at the same time, we have some leeway as far as the timing goes. Susan, what do you think?
Yes. I think that definitely needs to get done, and we'll have to muster some power. I think probably the Friends page of the newsletter could set out a stage that's what we're going to be doing, and at least get the word out in the February newsletter that we're going to pursue an additional van, and that we'll be doing some fundraising. I don't know how that would be phrased, but something to that effect, to at least get the word started, and then the Friends had start to meet with some people that are knowledgeable in this area of raising a significant fund. Some people come to mind, so if that sounds all right to as an approach for immediately, I think that would work on getting us started. But we just need to make sure we get that out there and have that commitment to raising the funds for a new van.
Okay, so you could set up a special fund and then a van fund or something. Norma?
Does the town manager agree that we really need a fourth van? Because my concern is, if we raise money and get a fourth van, and then when we apply, the third van is no longer serviceable, I don't want him to say, well, you've got another van, you're replacing with it, if you follow my train of thought.
No, I do, and I think with the statistics that we have, is what we saw, and the how much the van is used.
Well, we agree with it, but I didn't know if he agreed at this point.
I don't know that he's seen all these figures yet, but I think once anybody, even if it has to go to town meeting, when they see the amount of usage that this van is getting now. And also the trips that are being denied, and any kind of other things, that once we have the statistics, which we do have, to show anybody
Well,
that we really need it, And
well,
I think
well,
because
we
of the-
agree, I just wanted
No.
to make sure that he was on the same
I
page as
think
we are.
probably, yeah.
I think it also gives an opportunity to try to correct. Well, I say correct, but it's not like the WRTA is doing anything wrong. Again, they're falling victims of trickle down of all
Yeah.
of what's happening on state and federal level stuff too. But if we have a fourth van, perhaps we'll be able to get additional funding from the RTA, which is something we've been working on, and Dan Morgado had been working on before he retired, and it obviously would be cheaper for the RTA to help fund a van for us that we own, and
Them providing.
right,
That
so
provided the van.
because they've had their own capital struggles trying to get their own vans to, as I had talked about previously, their fleet was a mess this summer because they didn't have enough vans to go around, and they're currently trying to get a vehicle of six, or a fleet of 6 new vans from the DOT, and they're waiting on those too from the DOT. So knowing that there's not enough vans to go around, if we were to go and buy a van, maybe it opens up the opportunity for the RTA to say, well, we can't buy a van, but perhaps we can help with operating.
Yeah.
Even if it's a matching cost,
Yeah.
anything would help.
That's right.
And hopefully it could be a win-win. So there's, I think additional opportunities that we could explore that we currently can't do. Because right now we have a whole bunch of roadblocks. The RTA is like, don't look at us, we don't have enough vans to cover Worcester. The DOT is saying, we don't know what's going on. We just had our whole thing
That's obvious,
shift.
that's obvious, yeah.
So if we just plug along and try to take care of what we know needs to be done, maybe some of these other things will fall into place as the dust settles, and we'll be in better shape than some of the other communities
Yeah.
that are just trying to hold out. So I don't think it could hurt.
Yeah. What do you think, Susan?
Well, I just have one thing before I have to leave.
Yeah, no,
and
yeah.
that is, I think before we get too deep into the fundraising, which I think we should do sooner rather than later, we need to know what are the cost. What's the cost going to be? What kind of a van are we getting? How is it going to be equipped? I think we need to know that. We don't need to know it for the February newsletter, but we need it for us to operate. So are we talking $60, $80, $100, $120,000? I mean, what is it that we're talking about? We've talked about different size vans and that kind of thing. So I think that's something that we need to be looking at with some degree of urgency. Still making a good decision, but making sure we know what we're going after, so we can set our sights and make a plan. The friends can make a plan for getting the funds that are necessary.
Good point.
Yeah, I think we can get some information before our next meeting so that we can make that decision at our next board meeting in February. That
have
we
a
can get some
suggestion.
costs. Yes, Shashi.
Would you consider talking to the drivers and soliciting their opinions about the vans that they drive?
Okay, I'm going to have to sign off so I can get ready to go to
Yeah.
All the best, Susan.
Yes.
to my
Yes, good
appointment.
luck.
But thank you very much,
Yes.
and I'll be looking to Shrewsbury Cable in order to see the rest of this meeting. Thank you very much for accommodating my needs.
No problem.
Hope we can see you tomorrow, or at least talk to you.
I hope so. Yep. Bye-bye now.
Bye
All
now.
right, Susan. Bye.
Yes, go ahead, Shashi. To talk to the drivers, I think that's an excellent idea.
Because they will know the kinds of problems that they run into.
Yes,
and what features they would like, rather than just say, take something similar to what we have now.
yes. Then what works, what doesn't work, what
Maybe
needs
there
to
are
be
things out
changed.
there that they would like to see, that we
That's
haven't.
right.
I'm definitely very intrigued by what I heard at the conference of some of the communities getting, smaller vehicles to use
Multiple
almost
smaller vehicles.
right as shuttles that still have a wheelchair accessible, but I think that some of those are even available as hybrids. We'll have to look. Worst case scenario, if things don't come together for February, Cynthia is going to be going down to Atlanta again for the Root Match conference in March, the last week of March, and there's always that. I mean, there's the number of attendees that go to that is huge. It's about triple the size of the MCOA conference, and that's a nationwide thing. And there's lots of vendors there for vehicles, so we could send her on a mission to collect all kinds of data on the different vehicles from the vendors that are there too from across the country.
But I agree with Susan that we need, before you put out publicity about what type of van, I mean, we need to know the type of van and how much our goal is. I mean, is it 20,000 or is it 120,000? We need to have those figures. Yes,
I'm wondering, what is the largest number of people that are being transported in a van at one time? That's the number that you really have to have a van that size and not too much bigger. I don't know. Are
I
all the
don't know
seats
either. I
filled
don't know how
at
many.
one time, or
Only for
that would tell you how big a van you need.
and Katie could probably jump in if she wanted to, because usually the only time it's at capacity is during shopping trips when we're taking everybody, a large number of people to one place and back. Otherwise, it's we might have
Okay.
5 people on, 3 people are getting off, 2 people are getting on.
Right.
So
So-
we're transporting a bunch of people throughout the day, but the number of people on the bus all at one time is usually pretty small, with the exception of the trips, which, Katie's a rider, so she could tell you, the capacity that she sees when she goes on the shopping trips.
Early morning, usually I see probably 1 to 4 people at a time, and they're being dropped off at various different places. Afternoons are even a little more, because some of the people are leaving from the senior center from the things they have been doing during the morning. So, at any given time, I've never seen the bus totally filled with the riders like that. However, the shopping trips, which you talked about, the trips to the various different type stores, we have these, Target and all these, they're usually filled.
How many is that?
That would be somewhere between, 12 and
12.
15?
Yeah.
something
Oh.
like that.
12.
12.
I think the maximum we can fit is 12,
Okay.
but we lose 2 seats if we have to accommodate a
Wheelchair.
wheelchair. So in that case, we can only accommodate 10 because the wheelchair, the 2 seats have to fold up to accommodate the wheelchair.
Yeah.
So depending on if we have an ambulatory rider or not, would change
Yeah,
the
would change.
capacity.
Wasn't one of the loaner vans or one of the vans we had, didn't
Bigger.
yes, that
Yeah.
accommodated the
Yeah, we had the WRTA when we had our van out for repairs for a long time. They gave us a bigger shuttle bus, and I think you're right. I think that had 15. It had an
okay.
additional seat, and it allowed. It was the driver said it was easier to accommodate a wheelchair because it had that built in, so that you
Yes.
weren't having to constantly break down and fold
Yeah.
up the seat. So that was a different type of model. I think that was a 15 or a 16.
15.
A 15.
But like the last time I went on the Price Choppers trip, we had someone who brought her scooter on. Basically, it's her little wheelchair thing she can run around. And that took up a lot of room. And so we lost the 2 back seats. So now you're at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
Mhm.
Okay, so you've lost 12, you're down to 10.
Yeah.
So those are the times that we need, that backup van sometimes, so that we can get those people on.
Yeah.
But again, about this van thing, why do we talk about the 15-seater? Maybe that's the van we really need, so that when we go on these trips, the wheelchair or whatever's there is not in the way. And that way we've got the extra seats and we have the wheelchair area all set into it.
Is that the largest van per se, like a 15 seater?
I want to say I've seen some that are a 20 passenger, and those look more like a small school bus.
Yeah,
Um,
so I don't think we wanna go that big.
No, I think we should stick with the size that
Just
we
the
have
van,
now.
and we'd have, I forget, we'd have to check the, but with the state, there's, when you get above a certain weight class, you have to have a commercial driver's license to
Oh,
operate the
okay.
vehicle. So all of our drivers go through the DOT medical exam to drive, but they don't have, a few of them do, have a DOT license. That they've gone through the licensure to drive a commercial vehicle. But we'd have to keep that in mind too. I think the RTA van that Katie spoke about, I think that's the largest you can drive without doing the commercial size driver's
And that's the
license.
15 seat,
15
15, yeah.
Yeah, because then it, like I said, it jumps up to a different weight class, and then you have to have what they call a CDL.
Now, how many, you talk about a smaller van, how many people would be in a small van? I mean, what are you talking, small? I mean, 2, 4,
I think
don't
it's
know.
6. I
Oh,
think
6?
I think they can do 6 passengers. If they do the wheelchair, I think again you lose 2.
Right.
So it would be 4 passengers in the wheelchair. The person can't ride in the wheelchair. The person would have
No,
to
I
transfer
get
to a
you,
seat, and then the wheelchair would have to be secured. So
Yeah.
it's not like you could do 4 people plus 1 sitting in the wheelchair. You'd have to. So anytime.
So that's the average small, quote unquote, 6.
That I've seen it is a 6 passenger. So kind of like
I think
a
that's too small. I
like
think.
a
too small.
retrofitted minivan.
I mean, that
type
would
of
be
thing.
great if it was an addition to the fourth van, then have a small one.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about.
No, I don't think so.
No,
Cliff?
Yeah, in addition to capacity, I think you need to look at access. I think about these airport limos, they probably will hold 6 or 8 people, but getting in and out for all but 2 of those people is a challenge that might be difficult for a
We
lot
just
of seniors.
did that Monday night.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
So I know exactly. We were the last 2 to get in. There were 9, and it was horrendous.
Now, was that an accessible van? Did it have a wheelchair access? No.
No,
Okay.
So,
Even then,
It's like a limo.
it's a shared van.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
one of those big vans, so I know
They
exactly.
call them limos, but they're not.
No,
Yeah.
they're not.
I try to make it sound
But
fancy.
anyway, so I know what you're talking about. Trying to get in and out of those things is
Yeah.
ridiculous, yeah.
Can I add one more thing? When you were talking about the third van and the fourth van and how are we going to justify this and so on, remember one thing, with the fourth van, now we can take more people in more places. In
Yes.
other words, we won't have to be dictated how many people we can take here or there. We'll have that capacity now, so that the people, the riders, the passengers, will now be able to say, oh, good, I can take the van, I'll go there, I can take the van, I'll go, we're not restricted. And
Yeah.
then you open up the 3, let's say 3 to 6 area. That will in turn show the town just how much they're being used now.
Yeah.
with
I
all those
think the biggest
restrictions.
thing you mentioned is the 3 to
With
Yeah.
all
6.
due respect, Katie, once you get the 4th van, what's going to happen is, all those people who are now getting rejected by Cynthia saying we denied because are all those people are going to be using that 4th van, and the 4th van will be operating at capacity in no time.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's
I
what I'm
think so
saying.
too.
That's what I'm saying.
I really do, yeah. I think it's
Because
good.
all those people who are now
Yeah,
being
right.
refused,
Yes,
Right.
Yeah,
turned down.
the hairdressers.
That's why we
Are
need
not
a
going
fourth
to refuse
van.
anymore.
that's right,
Oh,
that's
yes.
right. And also to go to Westboro and Northboro and
Yeah.
all the places that the RTA van can't go,
I
give
don't
us.
think we have to worry about overcapacity.
No,
No, I don't either.
Well, that was one thing Cynthia was saying when we were putting this report together, is on the second page, if you look at the cab rides, to remember,
I
those
think it
are,
needs to go up there.
yep, sorry, thank you, Chauncey. If you look at the cab rides, I'll even use my pointer. The cab rides are trips that would go on
The fourth
the
van.
fourth van. If we have the capacity, we'd be taking those people, if we weren't confined to the operating hours and the capacity issues. Because right now, we send people out on the cabs if we can't fit them, or if their trips don't fit within our service hours. And I know that's something we've been talking about too, is that if we had another van, would we change the service hours? So those are all things to think about too. But again, if you look at this, I highlighted the things that kind of jump out. And again, the wheelchair lift usage is down on both buses if you compare where we were at the second quarter of FY17 versus now on the one bus. So the trips going to Worcester, it's almost half. But the trips in town have almost doubled. So we're seeing a shift of where people who need wheelchair access are traveling to. And I mean, from what I think anecdotally, what I could say is we're seeing more people, as opposed to just going into Worcester for medicals that have wheelchairs, are doing more things in the community, going to the bank, going to the hairdresser, a lot of the things Katie mentioned, doing their own grocery shopping. That number is up because people that do utilize wheelchairs are getting out in the community and living more independently, which is what we want.
That's right.
Whereas, previously, these people would have just automatically have gotten services to have those things done for them, to have their grocery shopping done for them, first of all, there's not the money to pay for that anymore. But secondly, if somebody can get out, they want to. People don't want to be homebound if they have the capability of going out and doing their own grocery shopping. So I think that's a big shift that we're seeing compared to last year.
And maybe some of these people were not able to continue living at home, but because of other services,
Yeah, that's right.
So
they're able to.
That's right.
these numbers here.
What is PCA?
Oh, people needing a personal care attendant. So that's a
Oh,
person who
okay.
can't travel alone, that they need
Okay.
assistance. Because remember, the van is curb to curb. So if you can't have the van drop you off at the curb or pick you up at the curb independently, if somebody's got to push you on to, because the van driver isn't supposed to be leaving the vehicle. The RTA states that the driver's supposed to stay in their seat and they're not supposed to leave the vehicle for liability reasons and safety reasons. So it's supposed to be a curb-to-curb service. The bus stops, you get on the bus by yourself, you get off by yourself, and you go on your merry way. Obviously, a lot of people need assistance, either someone to push their wheelchair or to help them on the lift. But we also have people that have cognitive issues. And again, that kind of fits into our dementia-friendly initiative stuff too. If somebody just wants that support. They're going to a medical doctor and they want
somebody to-
another set of eyes and ears to hear what the doctor has to say. We don't charge for that. If that person's coming to act as an assistant. So it can be for emotional support, physical assistance, but a PCA rides for free. Now, a companion, as you can see, that those numbers are pretty low. That's if you are riding the van, you're getting your hair done, and your friend's going to come with you, and you're going to go out to lunch afterwards.
Yeah.
That person has to pay the same fare.
Yeah.
Because they're not assisting you, they're just coming with you. So that doesn't happen too often, but we do have a few.
Okay, good.
I have one quick question. Katie said something about a motorized wheelchair,
Yes.
how it cuts down the number of wheelchairs that can be on there. Now, I'm a little, not confused, but can we avoid that?
We
Because
can't,
most
we can't
supermarkets-
discriminate.
You know,
I know you can't discriminate, but the thing is, if they had a regular wheelchair, you can accommodate 2 more people. And many supermarkets already provide motorized wheelchairs for use within the supermarket.
Yeah.
So,
Target and Walmart too,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
so why do these people feel the need to bring the motorized wheelchair? Could we just,
Probably that's the only one that they have.
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
Probably that's the only wheelchair that they have.
Well, they need to get to the curb,
Yeah.
so it's curb to curb service, right? If they really can't get there any other way and that's their only
Mhm.
wheelchair.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so it is, we do see quite a few different things, cause you see what we call the manual wheelchairs.
Right.
You know, where you're pushing yourself or having somebody else push you. The motorized wheelchairs, you know, where the person has like kind of that joystick, but they're seated in, you know, a wheelchair. And then what we call the scooters, and that's where you have the handles. And as Katie said, those are bigger. So to secure them, we lose 2 seats no matter what type of thing it is. Unless it's somebody who just has a regular wheelchair that can be folded up and secured and strapped to the back of the van. That's one thing. But for the most part, they flip the seats up, they secure the wheelchair. The person has to transfer. The person can't, again, they can't ride. That's against regulations. They can't ride seated, and they have to be able to transfer to another seat. So, you know, it does bring up a good question, because if they can transfer, couldn't they transfer once they got to Target? But like Cliff said, they'd have an issue, because how would they get from the curb onto the van and then out of the van to get the scooter at Target? There'd be a gap there.
My guess is, I don't know, my guess is we have two kinds of users with scooter chairs. One is the person that needs the chair to get to the curb. The other is the person that wants it for convenience. And frankly, the scooter provided by the store is better because it usually has a nice big basket on it that
Yes.
the individual ones wouldn't, in order to collect merchandise. So while we can't discriminate, we might find a way of encouraging people to think about whether or not they might not use the scooter in the store rather. But the other thing that comes to my mind, I had a friend who had a scooter and was able to drive his own car, and he had a contraption. That was external to the car. I don't know whether that's possible, but the thing was dropped down and anchored into place very simply, and the scooter was strapped onto it, and it was riding in the back. I don't know whether that's possible in a van kind of arrangement. That was a regular passenger car.
No, I know the big city buses, they put bikes on the front.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've seen that.
But yeah, and I don't know if it affects the cameras. I'm not sure. We'd have to ask the RTA
I
what the regulation is. But I've never seen that in any of the paratransit
This one went on
vehicles.
the rear, not on the.
Yeah, because I have seen, you know,
Yeah, I've
at
seen
church
those.
and things like that,
I've
I'll
seen
see
those too,
people
yeah.
with those.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, anything more on the transportation things? Okay. I will go back to I wanted to get to that before Susan left us, because I know to talk about the Friends part of the van. Okay, we have the strategic plan update. We're doing pretty well. We're meeting again tomorrow with our goals and with all things coming along. I think we're probably maybe where we should be at this time. And when we started off last year, I wasn't too sure, but I think we're getting more acclimated to the whole process, and it seems to be going well. And I think Kathy feels good about the things we're doing, according to what she said. So that'll be interesting. The budget. Have you met with Kevin yet? With the
No, but after Louise had inquired yesterday via email if we had gotten any feedback yet on our budget, if Kevin had made, the town manager, if he had made any cuts to our regular request. And as you know, he was doing it a little differently in that we have our regular, I don't know what you would call it, just our regular operating request, and then our supplemental request would be for enhancing our services. That part's still being worked out. But I did go into the accounting system to see what because his numbers have been posted, and so far they're identical to ours. No changes.
Yeah, I saw last night they had the selectmen's meeting on, and he was going through all the budget kind of thing, so I was wondering if we have been refused anything before we even get there.
Yeah, so if he has issues with anything, it will be with the enhanced portion. But as far as everything that we asked for, all the increases that we asked for in the 456 operating, preserving the additional position, that all is still in there. None of it's
Good,
been changed.
Have they set the dates yet for our appointment with the finance committee?
No, I have an appointment with him after our meeting, so I'll double check on that while I'm there
If we have the
and see if we have the
10th
date yet.
available, yeah. Yes, Sawyer.
Do we have data or charts to project at the time when we are in the finance committee to make our demands stronger? Because just speaking it doesn't have that impact on the audience as it would if we had charts and pie charts or graph charts to
Do you mean projected?
project it.
I can ask. I know that it seemed like that had always been discouraged in the past. I never saw any other departments
No, I've never
do
seen
that either.
Maybe at town meeting, but not at the finance committee.
Yeah.
If there's questions,
What is the way that we can have a stronger impact on the audience than just speaking it out?
I know what one COA did, but I don't know if it would be good for us. But and this is a story Emmett Schmarzo from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs loves to tell. But one town was really having an issue with their budget, and the chairman of the board loved to bake and made pies for every member of the finance committee, and handed them a pie, and the icing labeled the different parts of the budget. Yes. And then they all said, but the Council on Aging isn't even on here. And the board chair said, yes, and handed out a toothpick.
oh,
And said, because
That was the
statistically,
size,
yeah.
we could do that.
So it was a little, kind of a guerrilla marketing, so to speak.
Well, I don't bake pies, so you're safe.
But
Maybe Shashi does.
But
But it made quite a visual, and of course the local papers had a field day with it, and took pictures of the pie and the whole bit. But that town had some real adversarial issue with their finance committee, which thankfully we don't have.
don't have that.
So I don't know.
Because,
I can ask Kevin that too.
Because one of his notes, and Kevin's notes in the previous meeting, he did mention that he would like to have data on our demand. So how do we present that data?
True.
I think, excuse me.
Easy.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's better, maybe. What's happening? At the February meeting, by that time Sharon should have had her meeting with Kevin. And so they will go over it, because that will be the final one before our meeting with the Finance Committee. Either it's the 3rd or the 10th. So we will go over everything that we're proposing, and we will see what kind of background information we might need. And if in fact, Sharon will ask and see if we can do anything visual. And so we will finalize all that at our February board meeting. So we'll know exactly where we're headed and what we need to, if we need to gather more information or whatever, we will have a month to do that. So where we're not meeting in February this year, they gave us an extra month to do that, yeah. So, okay, anything else with the budget or? Okay, moving right along. Excuse me. Outreach.
and I don't know what I did with my chart to display there. But for the most part, you can see the trends are still continuing that Walter has outlined. He continues to document how many email cases he's working with each month. And again, they're not many, it's just a handful. But he feels it's important to track that. And one of the things that we've been doing in the office is now we're all starting to track it, because Cynthia's dealing with more transportation requests via email. Stacy's dealing with more volunteer requests via email. I deal with things via email. So a lot of us are, interacting with the public and addressing a need or a request, and we never physically talk to the person. And we want to make sure that data doesn't get lost. So we're actually, and Carmela Iacona, who had always done our telephone statistics, has been talking with us about thinking of how we might want to revamp those when the new fiscal year starts, because a lot of the categories are now outdated, and there's a lot of things that, again, we're not really capturing statistical wise, that I think would help Walter and give us a bigger picture. For example, when people call in, we have an under 60 category. That if the caller's under 60, we check that off. Well, we don't go into that further. Are they calling because they're a caregiver? Are they calling because it's an agency contact that we're working with? And those are kind of two different things. If we talk to 250 people over the course of the year that are under 60, and 200 of them are agency contacts, but 50 of them are caregivers, that's important to know, as opposed to just saying, we worked with 250 people under 60 this year. Well, in what capacity? Right now, we don't have the ability to break that out. So that's one thing that we've been kicking around in possibly, again, eliminating categories or expanding on other categories in our logs, and maybe not calling them, our telephone logs, but maybe more communication logs, communication in all forms, whether it's through Facebook. Stacy's had some people request volunteer things, messaging on the Facebook page, through text, through email, through the phone. So now we have so many different forms of communication. The telephone log, although it still covers the majority of our communication, isn't all of it.
No.
And I think as the years go by, that gap will continue to grow if we don't start capturing it. So I think Walter's definitely onto something, and it's something, we're starting to now work on ourselves, and we'll see how that all plays out. But for the most part, you can see his numbers are pretty much down the line, all trending higher than they were last year, and we're now halfway through the fiscal year. So if he does the same numbers or more for the remainder of the fiscal year, he'll certainly be ahead of where he was last year.
He's way ahead in the contacts.
Yeah.
Anything, they're all above,
And again, more walk-ins, just people, again, just showing up. And I know I've spoken to it before, but Walter thinks that speaks to the fact that people would assume that someone is here full-time to deal with outreach, that, and particularly because all the surrounding towns have full-time outreach. Yeah. They just assume they can just show up, and they're anticipating that there'd be somebody here for them to talk to on those issues. So again, I think that demonstrates that need, that we do need somebody full-time for outreach, because
you haven't heard anything more from Kevin about that.
Well, that would be under our enhanced request, so.
But Walters was supposed to be this year. Was supposed to start the first of the year, full-time.
Yeah, I can ask him about that when I see him today too, see what he wants to do
Ask him
about that.
about that. I know he said he had to talk to the personnel board.
Right, and I think they were meeting this morning, so he might have, unless it's next week, but.
Excuse me. Did you talk to Walter about that thing in Bellingham?
I mentioned it in passing. He said he'd have to check his calendar. Unfortunately, he was out sick last week, and he's out sick again this week, the poor thing. But if he was free, he was definitely interested.
And to work with to put on a program. I figure probably
Yeah.
around April
No,
sometime we were gonna put the program on. It was interesting, I was reading the MCOA, and they're going with, instead of caregivers,
care partners.
care partners. And I love that phrase, your care partners. And they're changing all the terminology and
Yeah.
all their things, which I think
I never heard that.
I never had either. And I thought it was a very nice phrase to use.
Yes, they asked, MCOA asked that all the COAs start using that language in the newsletter. So if you notice on the outreach page in last month's newsletter, that's on the second column up at the top. We introduced that term and explained that we'll be starting to use that phrase, that in the caregiving community, they're trying to shift that language because they feel caregiving kind of denotes that the person is helpless or needy, and that's often not the case. It's a partnership, and so they feel care partners was a more definitive term of what's really happening there, and demonstrates the person that's receiving assistance is still a very powerful individual,
That's
still has a
right.
lot to contribute, is not needy, helpless. It's a more empowering word
Yeah.
than
So-
at least that's what they're hoping
That's right,
to convey.
yeah. So are there any more questions about the outreach? Well. Okay. And the program's still going well, the dementia-friendly?
Yep, we're plugging away. Now that we've got the holidays behind us, we'll be starting to start working on the business portion of it. And Unibank, because of the donation that they gave us, they're very interested in perhaps being our pilot or our guinea pig for doing the dementia training with the banking part of it.
Oh,
so,
nice.
So we'll see
Oh, that would be
what
good.
happens with that.
Yeah, I said, hopefully every business in town will get into that, so, okay, senior center public computers. Shashi and I are going to go visit soon, I hope, Kevin, about his website, that we're going to get into that over the holidays. Things got kind of busy and whatever, so we will take that up, and hopefully by next week we'll get to see Kevin and hopefully with John Covey. We're hoping that maybe he can meet with us and go into the IT thing, because we need, and you're talking about the change and everything, and technology is one of the major things that we're seeing changes with, and the more help they can give us, the
See,
better.
the way I look at it, the internet is a valuable tool, which is terribly underutilized here. Because, the seniors, the elderly who are afraid to use it, I mean, they don't use it because they're afraid to use it. But there's a lot of stuff, a lot of information out there that they could get. It's a means for us to communicate with them, and for them to communicate with us, especially the homebound. And that's my motivation behind all of this. Computers per se are just only a piece of it. And what we have now, sitting out there, no one using it, are only piece of it's only a part of the.
So, yes.
I just have two quick updates from IT in regard to some of our program-related computer use. So if you happen to be walking down the hallway, you might want to peek in if the door is open. Yesterday, we received a brand-new computer in the consultation room for our professionals to use that are in there. So when we're doing our legal clinic, hearing screening, if Dr. Claremont is doing a screening, if shine counseling is taking place in there, one of our legislators is holding office hours, there's now a computer. It's all in one, so there's no modem or whatever you would call that tower. So it is chained to the desk, because where it is just a small one-piece thing, IT didn't want it walking. So it is discreetly chained to the desk behind it. They drilled through and put it attached to the desk. But it's very simple to use. You just move the mouse and it just says welcome, and you click and it brings you directly to the town's homepage. And then from there you can go to Google, because it's tied into our programming type of things. It can't go on Facebook or YouTube. So if somebody wanted to go on our senior center Facebook page, they wouldn't be able to from that computer. But that should be a great help for the Shine Counseling, and for our other professionals that use that as a consultation room to show someone they're meeting with, oh, here's a great website that you could go to read about these types of hearing devices, or a legislative aid could show somebody some of the programs that are available to them. Stacy met yesterday with AARP. That's coming together for taxes starting next month. They're meeting with IT on the configuration they'll need in this room, because we typically have 4 workstations set up, and AARP brings in all their own computer equipment and printer, but they have to work with IT to gain access to, the Wi-Fi network. But they brought up that they apparently have gotten notice. I feel bad. I don't mean to keep saying negative things about the federal government today, but they apparently have gotten, AARP has gotten a directive that next year for tax season, with these tax changes, there's all kinds of new regulations that AARP will have to adhere to in conducting taxes that will affect IT, including that they might need their own, I don't know what you would call it, like internet connection. I don't know. Stacy's more computer savvy than me, so it kind of went over my head. But so she's directing the her contact of AARP to John Covey, so that they can maybe start playing with that in time for next year's budget season. Because if we do have to buy a separate router or whatever, that it'll be in the budget, and then again we'll have to figure out, is that something IT would pay for, we would pay for, would we split it, how would that work? Because the AARP tax program has always worked so well here, and that's a regional program, they're really looking to us for help, because we're so much more ahead of the game than some of the smaller senior centers. So come next year, they really don't know how the tax program is going to work with these new regulations for the taxes. But hopefully, by being proactive, IT will be right on top of it, and
Let's hope so.
we'll be able to provide the taxes next year, regardless of what the federal government might tell us
Well, what's
has to
going
be
to happen?
done.
Nobody knows what's going to happen right now.
They wanna make sure that no one can hack into the system, so
Correct.
they're gonna.
That's true. That's the other thing. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
So,
I mean, the intentions behind it all are good, but trying to figure it all out is something else.
Yeah.
But so that was exciting. So I want to publicly thank all the work our IT department did in helping us get that put in the consultation room. I think the
That's good.
folks will really appreciate that, and it'll be well
did
used.
they provide it for us?
Yep.
We didn't
So-
have to pay for it?
No. So they said they were able to, because it falls under programming.
Oh, okay.
Because of Shine, because of,
All the other
all the
things, yeah.
things that will hopefully be used for. The public computers, not so much. So they, when you talk with Kevin and John, they'll probably be offering some more guidance on where they will have to draw the line on what we can do with those public computers that they could help us with, and what they just
Can't
will
do.
have to draw the line with.
Yeah.
And then we can take it from there, whether it's a Friends, initiative, or again, turning to the library for some guidance, or other COAs. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
at least we'll
We'll see
have
after
options.
we talk with them
Yeah.
and see just what's coming up, yeah, so. Okay. Updates. I don't think any of this has been done.
We've got a few updates. I did talk to Bob Cox since we last met and asked, where things stood with things. And of course, unfortunately, the weather has not been kind to his department, so they've had their hands full. But the Keurig people were in the process of finalizing the contract. On our end, we need them to be an official vendor and have, them all squared away with accounting. But they need us to be the same. So I'm in the process of filling out the paperwork for them to be one of their customers, because in order to buy their machine at the rate that we are, we have to, of course, buy into their K-cups. So I get the pleasure of picking out 16 different types of beverages that we'll be having through the machine, and that should be here within the next month.
How about the water? What did we decide about the water?
They have a contact they're referring us to on that. So
I mean, how's it going to, will we have to change bottles and that kind of stuff?
well, it will be with a bottled system, but they have a provider that will come in and, correct, yeah.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
at least hopefully it will work that way. The sound system he's meeting, he being Bob, has given the quote that we received over to the contact at the school department. And that person, his name is Greg, is reviewing it, and they need to get together and then meet with the sound system guy. The good news is Bob says if they can pare it down to what Greg thinks will be workable, they do have the funds in Bob's account to cover all of it.
Oh, good.
So he doesn't want us to get our hopes up, but he says right now it's looking good that we'll be able to get everything we need through their budget. The blinds, he said he wasn't sure what the update was. He said he's hoping that will just be a quick fix. He's just not sure what the status is. As of now, they just plan on ordering, a whole new unit, a whole new header, all new vanes, and just, be done with it and have a whole new thing. He doesn't want to go with a new header and then have
No.
the vanes not work because they're older. So that's where that stands, is they're just ordering a whole new
Good.
set.
Good.
He just doesn't know, has the order been placed, is it on back order? So that part he has to check on. The signs, I met with somebody from the sheriff's office for the interior signs. I think the last meeting I had reported, I had called to talk to somebody. They had told me they had discontinued the program. Someone from the sheriff's office came out and talked to me and said, I heard you called to ask about signs. And I said, I did, but I was told that you folks had discontinued the program. And he said, no, that's not true. And he said, I got the call that you were, looking for signs. So the person I spoke to either was misinformed or that I was talking about a different program. So Bob Esposito from the Public Buildings Department went and got one of the signs, brought it over here. We measured it. We took pictures of it. We traced it. So those are hopefully in process.
Beautiful.
The biggest debate is we're gonna have to decide what colors do we want them and what type of lettering do we want on them. Because obviously different fonts are easier to read than others.
Very simple. Just
So,
a straight font. No, nothing curly Q or anything.
So what Walter did is he put a call into the dementia friendly folks that we've been working with to ask them for guidance for that workshop that we attended when they were talking about signage. On what types of signs do they recommend? Are there certain fonts, certain font size, certain colors that would make it more user friendly? So he was waiting to hear back from that. The outside signs, I think I told you the folks that did our big sign out there also provide plastic flat letters that we can put above. We again just need to pick out what type of lettering. And then Bob Cox will approve it. And he said he would assume his guys can put it up, but he said if they're really straight out and we're anxious to get them up for a certain date, he might have to charge us to put them up, or we might have to hire someone to put them up. So
We've waited this long, we can wait till they
So he said he just wanted to throw that out there. But and he said, if you'd like him to, he believes, he wasn't around today, because originally he said, I'll just pop in and I'll just give a report. But he said, depending on, the weather and how things are in February, if you'd like, he could pop in and give an update and report if you'd like him to.
I'm hoping that he's gonna be a part of the oversight committee, which is on here as well. I just realized, I went in the ladies' room, that towel thing is still on the wall, and the stalls have still not been fixed, the doors. And this has been a good 6 months. I mean, 2 months ago, we said they had ordered the parts. Did you mention that to him?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't have that. He ended up having to cut the call short because he had another meeting coming in, because he had a list that he had from you, and I was just working off the list that I had on the agenda, so.
Well, I think you definitely need to call, I mean, those bathrooms, that's
Yeah.
that's an important issue with those of us that use those. I mean, they've been broken. The doors have been broken for a good 6 months. And so, it's time that they're fixed. And also the towel thing, it's a danger in there. So, those definitely need to be fixed. The Building Oversight Committee, we have our 3 people, and the Friends are trying to get 3 people to serve. And I think we're going to set a meeting up toward the end of January. I'm gonna get together with Susan and we'll see. And I'm hoping that Bob Cox can come to that meeting.
Are you thinking morning, afternoon, what are you thinking?
I don't know. What's best for you? We'll kind of find out what's best for everybody in the days. I'll contact them and see what's best for everybody.
10 in the morning would be 10 or 11 in the morning.
It only takes an hour, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
At the most, yeah. So, okay, I'll put that 10 to 11. And
Monday,
Zoya-
Wednesday, Thursday.
pardon?
No, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is fine in the morning.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, okay?
Oh, Tuesday's not a good day for me, that's the only day.
Okay, we'll take off Tuesday then. Okay, so Wednesday or Thursday? At 10 to 11, okay. And I'll ask, yeah. The name has just escaped me. Sorry about that. And I'll pass this on to Susan. She can talk to the people she's getting to.
I think
So-
Bob is willing to participate, because he even made the comment, because he'll be retiring within the year, and he said, it'll be fun for him to be on the other side of
Of the side of what's going on, yeah, okay. Okay, well, I'll check with the others and we'll get back to you. Probably that last week of January, probably. But it's hard to believe it's the 10th already, The new year is flying as fast as the old one did. So, I think you all got a copy of the vacancy on our Council on Aging. If you know of anybody, send the name to Kevin. We want to get our board back in full complement.
What are we talking about? I don't,
Replacement
I
for
think
Charles.
I only got that yesterday afternoon, so I don't think you got one.
no, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, okay.
So, and
You keep that, that's fine, yeah, you can keep that,
And I don't know if,
Oh.
to kind of keep the genders what they've been, I don't know if Kevin will be looking to appoint another man, or if he won't care.
he just
I'm
said
not
a
sure.
person, he didn't
Person, yeah.
mention you can't really discriminate people applying, and I think it depends on who he gets, the names he gets, I think he will,
And for the people viewing at home,
keep that.
Can put this up there.
we could put it here.
Did you see this?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's on-
we'll
it's
put it
here.
right here, so people can see at home. In the past, some of our boards have had one person on the board who is under 60. That in recent years was the last time we had someone under 60. They were a baby boomer, so I don't think the town manager specified that the person even had to be 60. So it really would be open to anyone. I think the only requirement is that you do have to be a town resident, I believe.
Yes, you have to be a town
But
resident.
I believe you could be any age, at this point, because our bylaws do state we could have one member under 60.
Yes, under 60, yes, right. So,
Is the process then that we submit names and then they send the invitation like they, that's what happened to me.
yeah, somebody puts a name in and
Somebody
then,
puts a name in, who do I submit the name to?
Well-
Kevin. I
well-
think it says Kevin, I think.
I think what, interested persons must be registered voters of the town and are asked to submit a letter of interest in their qualifications to the town manager no later than 4:30 on January 24th. So I would say if you think of somebody that would be good,
Have
Give-
that individual
Right.
submit.
give
You
them
don't
one
do
of
the
these.
submitting.
See, that's the part that I'm not clear about.
The individual
Asked to submit
has
the
to
letter.
submit on
In
their
other words,
own.
if you are interested, if someone is interested, they should submit.
Yes.
Right. So if,
That's not what happened to me.
You didn't have to submit anything?
Me neither.
Somebody submitted
neither.
my name, and I got a letter from Mr. Magato saying, your name has been submitted. If you're interested, contact me.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
same,
There you go.
and then at that point you had to.
Yeah, at that point, I had a choice to respond to his letter or not.
Yeah,
yeah, so
That's the, it looks like it's a different.
yeah, so obviously.
I was just told to submit. I didn't go through that extra.
Yeah, so obviously
I didn't either.
the
No,
new
I
town
just
manager
submitted.
has a different,
has
You
a
know,
different
procedure.
approach
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the thing, yeah. So,
Just have that person submit
yeah,
their resume.
or just show an interest in it and then
Yeah,
see what,
right.
yeah, so. So anybody at home that wants to join us, we'll be happy to have, we
So-
need a 7th person.
yeah.
So is this notice going out anywhere beyond us?
It's been posted, I got notice from, the town manager's office yesterday afternoon that they had posted the vacancy, so I believe it's on the town website and it's posted over
As a town
there,
hall.
and then, I'll post it on our board out here too.
So
Yeah, I
that
don't-
individual could read it on the
I don't know if
town
they put it in
website.
the newspapers, I don't know where they,
I don't know.
I don't know.
They might,
where-
the
I don't know
local
how far
papers, they might.
They
Well, that sounds
Post it.
like it's covered enough.
yeah, it could
Yeah.
be,
the
yeah.
way-
And anybody watching us knows it now.
Yeah, right,
Can pass
that's
it on,
true, too.
and can pass it on to any of their friends or relatives
The
or
vast
whomever.
viewing audience is now informed.
Right.
Yeah,
I really think we got through everything. Susan's not here with the friends, but they have a busy spring coming up with their flea market and their craft show and a birthday party in April and the annual meeting in May. And so just watch the newsletter and all the publicity for all the activities of friends.
Raising money for a band.
And raising money for the van, that's a new one that's going to be coming up, and so you'll be hearing a lot more from the friends. And,
we did get a request, that, as the director, I said, okay, sounds good. I did have a request that if the Patriots make it to the Super Bowl,
Yes.
would the senior center be willing to be open and host a Super Bowl party?
All right, you mentioned that
And,
last
and
time.
perhaps the friends could co-sponsor it or something like that. So I just had another person ask me yesterday, they came to the window and they wanted to know, was that still a possibility? Because so far, so good. And I said, yeah, I think that would be fun.
It'd be a fun-
So, for anyone watching at home, if we make it to the Super Bowl, we'll do something here.
and hopefully we will, starting Saturday night. Yeah.
I think they wanted to watch the Super Bowl here.
Yes.
Yes.
So we'll have to figure out how that would work so we could project it.
On our screen?
Yeah. If we had our new system, it'd be easy.
Right.
But seeing we don't, it'll be a
Maybe
challenge,
they
but.
can get it in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. February
But there's no
3rd,
alcohol, right?
around there.
Correct, yeah, we wouldn't be able
Third.
to serve alcohol.
Yeah, so, yeah, we'll get it that
There
fast.
goes the party.
Yes, it would have to be a dry party.
Have you
That would,
alcohol
yeah,
before
yes,
you come?
yeah. But that's all right too, that's okay too, so,
All water bottles will be inspected.
yes,
That's what I'm thinking.
that's true, yeah. Okay, anything else?
Did we mention about tomorrow's lunch? The meatball and spaghetti lunch, isn't it tomorrow?
Oh, I don't know, oh, I didn't know about that.
For all the
Oh.
volunteers?
I sent you the invite.
Oh, I couldn't open it, it was,
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah, stuff in an S pub or pub, it's
oh,
I can tell you
hard to
after,
open if you don't have
before,
that
it's before our
application.
workshop,
oh, okay.
if you wanna
Mine-
come.
I couldn't
Oh,
open it
okay.
either.
I did find something that opens it though.
Oh.
LibreOffice.
I don't know, I
Which is
couldn't get it
free.
open, so
Oh,
I,
shoot.
and I forgot
LibreOffice.
to mention it to you.
It's a free
Okay.
application.
Anything
It's like
else coming up?
Microsoft Office, but it's
Sure.
free.
We will see you tomorrow,
It opens everything.
our meeting is adjourned.